Welcome back to the Sad Boy Cinema Club podcast. My name is Austin. His name is AJ. Join us as we try to find purpose and hope in America's true pastime. Watch some good old-fashioned movies. You see the title, you see the thumbnail. Today, we're talking about The Fast and the Furious, released in 2001, directed by Rob Cohen, starring Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, and a very brief cameo from Ja Rule. And the guy behind the camera, the cinematographer, is Erickson Core. I said at the end of last week's episode that I absolutely love these movies. Some of my top four, top six, the six grandfathers that we did at our beginning episode could be seen as potentially pretentious. However, I cannot help myself but love these movies, and we'll get into all the reasons why throughout this review. But my question to you now, being the quote unquote victim of my selection, had you seen this movie before? And generally, what are your feelings about the Fast and the Furious franchise?
No, I've never seen it. This movie came out when I was in high school, and it definitely wasn't on my radar. I didn't fit into that whole subculture of street racing, shit like that. So I knew about it. I know there's like 47 Fast and the Furious, but yeah, I didn't have any prior expectations or anything like that going into this.
So I did ultimately fall into that subsection, and maybe it was just where I grew up, and always I grew up in a place in West Virginia where it was very much rednecky, fuck the police, running from the law, kind of outlaw shit. So this always just felt like an extension of that, although I don't think I ever saw a bunch of Ford or Chevy S10s like just running around drag racing where I grew up. But I do feel like because I grew up where I did, this it kind of was like a credence to feel this way about this kind of movie, always running from the law. And then it kind of like morphed into that. I don't know if you can see it from over here. I have a Dominic Toretto Funko Pop over here, and I brought this out for a special occasion. One of my favorite video games of all time. One of the reasons I even bought a PlayStation 2 in my adulthood is so I could play this game. Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition, 100% completed for like the third time in my life. Absolutely love this series. Rockstar, if you're somehow listening to this, get off of your ass and remake this game. No one cares about GTA 6, but we all care about Midnight Club 3. I love this kind of culture, I guess, even though I would be way too afraid to do it myself. No shot I jump into a modded car like that and try to complete this by myself.
Absolutely no way. I would say that I am a curmudgeon, I guess, or like a crotchety old man. I fucking hate loud cars. So this was just like Chinese water torture for me watching this movie because I don't care about the culture. I don't care about the fast cars. The loud cars annoy me. Like very, very much going into this, I knew I was going to be a fish out of water for sure.
Well, the one thing that I can say about this movie is that myself and a lot of other people think that this is potentially one of the greatest film franchises of all time, and specifically one that never jumps the shark. And with that, let's just hop into the plot of this opening movie, the opening film of this franchise. Our first shot is of this loading dock where a bunch of Panasonic TVs, shout out, they must have had some sort of brand deal with this movie. They must have helped like fund this movie because there's a lot of ad placement throughout this. But the first one we get is a Panasonic TV, and they're being loaded into the back of this truck. One of the workers that just got done unloading this truck hops on the phone and informs somebody that this is a quote unquote real money truck and it's heading their way and to be on the lookout. Later that evening, I'm assuming the truck is on the road and is ambushed by these three street racing cars, which are Honda Civics. Not exactly a car that I would necessarily associate with street racing, especially the quote unquote newer Honda Civics, but maybe back in the day, maybe that was the go-to car. They start to attack this truck, and the driver, to get this payload of the Panasonic TVs, the driver puts up one hell of a fight, but ultimately the ne'er-do-wells get the upper hand and make the getaway with a bunch of these Panasonic TVs. Then we meet one of our main characters in this, Brian, played by Paul Walker, who's on a racing track and he's testing out his lime green 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse. Again, that kind of car right there, I definitely do associate with street racing because that was one of the first cars that you get in Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. Is that and a Mazda RX-7 are two of my favorite cars ever, specifically because of this game. So Brian's testing out this Mitsubishi Eclipse, and he just hasn't mastered it yet. He's still kind of new to this whole thing. You can very much tell. To blow off some steam that he can't get this right, he goes and grabs a bite to eat, where we meet the rest of the cast. Firstly, Mia, who you can kind of tell has the hots for Brian, and Brian has the hots for her. And soon after that, at this little interaction, this little flirting back and forth, we get to meet the rest of the crew for this movie. Vince shows up, and he notices the chemistry between Brian and Mia, and he's not a fan. He tells Brian to get the hell out of here, go somewhere else for lunch tomorrow, and then he calls him a slur during Pride Month, of all things. We're recording this during Pride Month, and also this movie was released during Pride Month, which is shameful. 2001, how we deplore you. During all of this, Brian gets pretty aggravated about the whole thing. I don't think he was necessarily so mad he was called a slur. It was more like the aggressive tone more than anything, because he doesn't buck because of the slur. He's bucking because you're like interfering with me and Mia, what we have going on.
All of that, like, I can't imagine just being in a car and it just going super fast and like failing at what I'm trying to do, and then going to like this little side of the road and being like, tuna sandwich, that's going to help relieve my stress today. And like, I get he has the hots for Mia or whatever, but I gotta imagine there's better sandwiches that Mia can serve than an old hot tuna sandwich. Like, that would piss me off and have me ready to fight more than somebody calling me a slur. I would be like, fuck, another fucking tuna sandwich. Cool.
You're telling me that you don't enjoy it, just a good old fish sandwich? You're telling me that you don't go down to Long John Silver's and get a cod sandwich? You're lying to yourself.
First of all, fuck Long John Silver's. The supreme fast fish dining experience is always and forever going to be Captain D's.
Brian and Vince now get into a scuffle about this whole thing, and they get a couple good shots in, but Mia tells Dom, her brother, to come out and deal with this whole thing. He breaks up the fight, and he tells Brian to get the hell out of here. Brian presses his luck, and then Dom says, because he notices that Brian is driving a Harry's Auto Parts truck, he says, "You just been fired, and I'll make sure of it."
That's such a Karen take, too.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, Vin Diesel is just a hunky man. What are you going to do about it, you know? We head back to Harry's Auto Parts, and it seems that Dom actually does have quite a lot of pull with Harry. You see, he and his crew buy all the latest mods for their car, and they always pay in cash. So he's going to have to kind of have to favor and, you know, cater to this particular clientele. Brian's pissed about this whole interaction, but the only thing that he can think about is getting NOS for his car. Not the energy drink, mind you, but nitrous oxide. It's a boosting agent to help your car go faster. Harry warns against using it by saying that he has too much of a heavy foot and he'll blow himself into pieces. I would like to take a moment to say that
was terrible foreshadowing.
Terrible foreshadowing. That's all I could think about rewatching this movie was, ooh boy, did you call it? 12 years too early, but hey, a shot is a shot. Very unfortunate for this character and calling the unfortunate timely passing of Paul Walker, but I literally couldn't. I could not hear that and write it down as a note and not talk about the unfortunate being of this character. Later that evening, we're at a street racing meet, and anyone is there. You can also tell when this movie came out, specifically because of the soundtrack, late 90s, early 2000s, because music like Limp Bizkit is playing in the background.
Hey, my daughter loves Limp Bizkit, and she wasn't born till 2009, so...
Brian makes some small talk with a few of the drivers, including someone I alluded to earlier, Ja Rule, and they're all waiting on Dom to show up. An initial race is set up, and it's a $2,000 buy-in. Winner takes all. Brian wants to get active, and instead of money, he offers a pink slip to his car.
That car was well above the $2,000, so I see why those other guys were like, "Yeah, absolutely, that can be your bargaining chip."
The crew inspects Brian's ride, and as you said, he has sunk a ton of money into this thing. So instead of the $2,000 buy-in, they're like, "Yeah, we can take your car, no biggie." Dom also approves, and I think that was the final nail in the coffin for that one. The non-racing drivers block off the road, and the official pizza sponsor of this movie, Pizza Hut, one of their drivers pulls up, and one of the non-racers says, streets closed, pizza boy.
Yeah.
And his response is, goddamn street racers, which I thought, it's not my favorite part of the movie. It's definitely up there, though. It's like reason number 2 or 3 being my favorite. Just that little interaction right there.
It makes me think of the TikTok where the kid's like, "Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy?"
Streets closed, pizza boy. Oh god, I didn't remember that line being there, because I mean this is the first time that I've rewatched this movie in like 15 years probably, so that's definitely going in my lexicon now for sure.
If I'm that pizza delivery driver, I'm like, well, fuck you. I'm about to just wreck my piece of shit car into your what more expensive car.
I've
And
got
I'm a
nothing to
pizza
lose.
man.
I deliver pizzas.
I'm one step away.
The race starts, and Dom jumps out to a pretty early lead. Brian hits both canisters of his NOS and pulls into the lead, if only for a moment. Dom hits his second canister of NOS to win the race. The police get wind of all the street racing going on, and everybody scatters after the race is over. Dom stashes his car in a parking garage, and he tries to play it cool, but a cop does see him and chases after him. He makes a break for it, almost gets caught, but then Brian shows up and offers him a ride. They escape. They actually have a nice little bonding moment between the two. There was a little bit of animosity between the two originally, but now they have a nice little bonding moment, because what says bonding moment like running away from the police together? Turns out Brian went to juvie for boosting cars, and that's how he's gotten so comfortable with this entire lifestyle. Mid-drive, Brian and Dom are met by a bunch of guys with crotch rockets and guns, and tell them to follow them back to their hideout. Johnny Tran is the leader of this whole crotch rocket gang, and apparently there's this agreed upon turf line that neither of them are supposed to go, and Dom has now unfortunately crossed into Johnny Tran's territory. To avoid any conflict, Dom says that Brian is his mechanic, and the bikers left him alone for now, for 15 whole seconds, until two of them turn around, shoot up Brian's car, causing it to explode because of the nitrous oxide tanks in the back. Which, you lost the car in the race. That was the agreed upon rule. I would have been severely more pissed that some random people that I don't know shot up my car and destroyed it, rather than me just having to give it up.
I think that would, deep down, I think I'd have been like, fuck yes, thank God. Thank you for destroying this car. Fuck this guy. I had my shot at him. Also, going back to that race real quickly, you've mentioned one of your favorite one-liners. One of my favorite one-liners from this movie is when Ja Rule is filling up that woman, and she's like, "You win this, you get her too." And in the race, you see Ja Rule get past, and you just hear him go, "No!" That's got to be it for me.
I mean, raise your hand if you wouldn't also have been that devastated if that happened to you. Ja Rule, you got a point there. I can't lie. So after a little bit of hiking and a cab ride later, Brian and Dom arrive back at Dom's place, and Dom invites him in for a drink. Mia, who now is confirmed has the hots for Brian, sees all this and has to freshen up a little bit. A wicked house party is going on, but Dom, not too pleased, because his entire crew left him. After a little bit of calming down from Letty, the love interest for Dom and Letty head up to their room, and some of the other crew start to rough up Brian a little bit, or getting ready to. Mia swoops in to save the day, though. Mia offers to take him home, and it's pretty clear that they want to study the Bible together. The next day, Brian is driving a company truck and is pulled over by some local police. They get back to a police compound, and it's revealed that Brian, this son of a bitch, is working with the local police as an undercover agent, and the FBI is also involved. The police chief warns Brian to keep an eye on Dom, because he went to jail for nearly beating a guy to death. And the FBI, for some reason, is really interested in these Panasonic TVs going missing. There are other things involved, which I guess would quantify this, crossing state lines, making this an FBI issue. But I don't know I don't work for the FBI, thank God. But I just don't think that TVs would mark it on my list to go, yep, I got to get involved now. Panasonic TVs, you said?
And DVD players. There were DVD players in there too. Remember, they were tough on crime. They always asked us growing up, you wouldn't download a car, would you? So, I mean, yeah, they were pretty serious about this. But also, I think it had more to do with the fact that it was. I think they said it was like something like $5 million worth of TVs and DVD players, which again, like I can remember growing up, we had like the not the fucking twist. I know you were gonna crack an old person joke. But they were expensive. I mean, like TVs. I remember even when I was a young adult moving out on my own. I remember like a nice size TV was like 700, $800, and I mean they still are, you know. So let's not poo poo the fact that this truck is full of TVs.
It just seems very odd to me. At any time that I ever see the FBI entered into some sort of pop culture, whether it's TV or film or whatever, it's always the president's daughter has been kidnapped. Somebody has taken Interpol hostage, like it's something like that. Not these ruffians are taking TVs away from it. Like I just seems a little bit out of place. Maybe that's why this franchise had to jump the shark the way it did, because it started off about TVs getting stolen. But who knows?
You know, you are very fortunate to have been a post 9/11. Like I'm a little bit older than you, so this is what life was like. The biggest concerns that the FBI had, it's kind of like now with Kash Patel finding, these crimes to prosecute. It's kind of like that. But, before 9/11, yeah, TVs and DVD players getting stolen, lock those people up. We got serious criminals out here.
Back to the movie now. Brian makes his way to Dom's garage, and he tries to make good on his deal. He owes Dom a 10-second car because his got destroyed. And Brian pulls up with this absolutely destroyed car, like absolutely 100% wrecked, but under the hood has a lot of promise. Dom says that he has got to get Brian racing soon so he can make some money off of him during Race Wars.
Yeah.
Unfortunate title for this particular circuit of races, but I guess that was the best they could come up with in 2001.
Well, also, I will give Fast and Furious, they covered every ethnic background in this movie. So I mean, I guess at the simplest of terms, Race Wars would have worked for this. I mean, there were multiple races.
Very multicultural this movie was, and always really has been, honestly.
And
so shout out to them. We learned very quickly that Johnny Tran and the Crotch Rocket gang will be attending the Race Wars. Dom has quite the change of heart here about Brian and says that anytime he's not working at Harry's, he can work at Dom's garage. So they're kind of like becoming friends now, which is nice to see. Later, Vince pulls up to the house to drop off groceries for family dinner, sees Brian there, and is furious about the whole thing. He leaves the Toretto compound. He does eventually make his way back, though, because a guy's got to eat, right? After dinner, Brian tries his best to convince Mia to go out with him, but Mia says that he doesn't date Dom's friends. There's a little back and forth. Vince crashes this interaction and shit talks Brian for a little bit. Mia sees all this go down and says that Brian can take her to Vince's favorite Cuban place. That would hurt me for a lot of reasons. Mostly, though, I love Cuban food. That would piss me off more than anything. Like, oh, you're going to go to my favorite place even though I have the hots for you? Wow.
Me too. Let's go. Trifecta date.
Tricycle date. Let's go.
You, me, your boyfriend. Let's go to dinner.
The next day, Brian's at work, and there's a couple guys from the previous street race that we saw that pull up to Henry's auto shop looking to buy. Hector, the leader of their group, comes in and tells Brian that he needs 3 of everything on his list. And after Brian looks at the car specs, it's revealed that the car match that he's looking for is a Honda Civic, just like from before, the people who have potentially stolen these Panasonic TVs, $5 million worth somehow. Later that evening, I'm assuming, Brian pulls up to Hector's garage and breaks in. He's looking for like concrete proof that Hector and his guys were the ones that are carrying out these heists. Hector does have the Honda Civics in his garage, but the tires don't match the profile that the FBI has given him. So he just tries to leave. On the way down, the exact same way he came in, on the way down, he's ambushed by Vince, who hits him in the back of the head with the butt of a shotgun. Vince drags his unconscious body to Dom, and they have some questions. Like, what the hell are you doing here? Brian's pretty quick on his feet, though. He says that he is doing some upcoming recon for this Race Wars. He needs to figure out what each competitor is going to bring to the race. Vince believes that Brian is a cop. It does seem like Dom does too, and they want to take a little ride. I wish I would have seen what happened between this point and this next scene. I feel like there should have been more conversation here. But it seems like, luckily for Brian, that Dom does like his recon plan, and they pull up to Johnny Tran's garage, and they see something pretty peculiar. The cars that they have there don't have engines. And, I'm not a gearhead, but I'm pretty sure you need engines to make the car go.
Unless you're in Bedrock.
Yeah, unless you're Flintstone and Bedrock, then not so needed. Here in Big 2020, or here in Big 2001, though, seems pretty important. We figure out why this car doesn't have any sort of engine in it, because Johnny Tran and his gang show up, almost see the rest of our heroes here, and they have some poor middle-aged white guy with them who was apparently responsible for getting these engines. I don't know what his connection is. I don't know specifically why he was brought in for this whole thing, but he has not delivered on his promise. So Johnny Tran kind of takes care of that by fucking waterboarding him with motor oil to make sure that he gets these engines. The engines are in this middle-aged white man's garage, so Johnny Tran and his gang go and get them. Insane that they chose waterboarding with motor oil, though, to get the information out. I've never seen that in any other piece of media ever.
That's what I was going to say. Groundbreaking, honestly, because I'd never seen it before, and I've not seen it since, so 101 action there.
While Brian is looking through Johnny Tran's garage, he sees a bunch of the Panasonic TVs in the garage. So the plot thickens a little bit. Is it Hector and his crew, or is it Tran and his crew? After this whole ordeal, Brian heads back to the police compound for a briefing, but he needs a few more days to get some concrete evidence before making any sort of hasty moves. We're at Dom's garage now, and we learn that tonight is the big night, the date with Mia. Dom says that he wants to show Brian something, so they head back to his place, and then we get to finally see this fucking beauty. 1970 Dodge Charger with a big block engine. Oh my God. I cannot tell you how bad I've always wanted this fucking car. It is so gorgeous.
It seems like you might need a cigarette and change your underwear after describing that car. I wish I was a car guy. I get it. I see all these souped up cars, and I'm not gonna lie, this car is badass. And Dom at this scene, he also explains that this car terrifies him. And to me, it kind of makes you think of cowboys and the unbreakable horse that they're trying. This horse has the fucking power, but if I get on him, there's a chance I don't get off. That's a weird fucking way to say that, but you know what I meant.
No, I like it. Speaking of horses, 900 of them under the hood. Again, just really a gorgeous, gorgeous car. And also, you see the Funkos in my background here. I, for the longest time, when we worked together, on my desk had this exact car, this exact Funko version of the car at my desk. Always loved this car. Still want it. I'll never have enough money to actually get it, but I do very much love this car. Dom says to Brian that he and his dad built this car together back in the day, but he's never raced it because, like you said, it does scare the shit out of him. Dom tells Brian that his dad passed away after a guy named Kenny Linder clipped his dad's bumper, sending him into the wall. Dom admits that a few weeks later he saw Linder and assaulted him so bad that he now has to take the bus to work every single day. Dom tells Brian that when he is racing, he feels truly free. And then we get the all-timer of a line from Dom, and he says that he lives his life a quarter mile at a time. I've never been able to use this in any sort of regular conversation, but boy, let me tell you, when I do, it's going to be a day.
I'm going to be honest, that's kind of how I live my life. I don't carry an ID. I don't carry any insurance documentation with me. I don't carry a physical debit card or cash. If I get pulled over, I get pulled over. I don't have any identification on me. If I go to a store and I buy something and then they don't take Apple Pay or Tap to Pay, guess I'm not shopping there. So I really do live my life 1/4 mile at a time.
It's finally date night. Brian and Mia goes to a really nice place, has a nice dinner, some back and forth conversation. They decide to go for a ride. And hey, turns out Mia can go behind the wheel. Nice little driver there. Quickly, we get to see that the Honda Civics are back at it again. The police chief gets heads up of this and lets Brian know, who just got done studying the Bible with Mia. I don't really know how you back out of that, though. I don't know. Obviously, this has never happened to me before. I don't know how you get a call, like you significantly have to go, like you absolutely have to go deal with this thing, but you're on a first date with someone, you've already done the deed, and you go, I gotta go, bye. Like, what? How do
You
you
just
maneuver yourself out of that?
you just go like this. You go, oh my god, I shit myself, and you just leave. They won't ask questions. I mean, you're naked, so that's gonna make it even more difficult. Like, I'm sorry, I shit the bed. Don't look. Let me get out of here first.
It's a little later. I'm assuming that he got the call in the middle of the night, so we're probably talking like 4 or 5 hours later. The police, the FBI, and Brian head out to make the jump on Johnny Tran and his gang, and they ended up taking him into custody at his house. After some investigating, though, the Panasonic TVs in Tran's garage were purchased legally, and the most that they have on him is some speeding tickets, some parking violations, whatever the case is. Not enough to send them away to jail. The FBI director, or the FBI correspondence here, says that Brian now has 36 hours to crack this case open. And then the police chief reiterates that he thinks that the perp is Dom and his gang, and Brian just can't believe it. He won't believe it.
Yeah, he's definitely blinded. But who would have thought that racial profiling would have failed again? It would have resulted in, a different minority getting hassled by the police, and all their shit's legal. So this is just a groundbreaking movie that we see that the cops are incompetent, and fuck 12.
The profiling always works for us, so why didn't it work this time?
It'll work next time. We just gotta keep trying.
Brian and Dom get to test out this rebuilt 1994 Toyota Supra, and afterwards end up getting a bite to eat. Brian finally confronts Dom about how he makes his money, and then Dom hands Brian directions to Race Wars and implies that if he wins, or even if he just does well, he'd bring him into this money-making business. The Race Wars are finally upon us, and hundreds of drivers are in it to win it. A couple of our crew do get into some pre-race gambles, which I think is a little miscalculated, a little, I don't know what the best word to describe it is. Foolish is another word, because I'm assuming that the Race Wars, even though we never get to this point, spoiler, I'm assuming the Race Wars is a huge race and not just a quarter-mile drag race. So why would you be using your nitrous oxide, which is limited because you can only hold up to X amount of canisters you have in the car? Why would you use some of that on a $2,000 race for nothing? Seems a little foolhardy. However, this is exactly what Letty does, and ends up winning a race over some sexist pig. So shout out to Letty.
That's the thing. I think this was all about just dick measuring. Like, I think that's what those are. Like, it's just a dick measuring contest. They don't really. But I thought that this would be like a race war. I imagined like a Cannonball Run type experience where you've got like teams of drivers and you're like, or like you probably don't remember. Do you remember the Wacky Racers cartoon?
Is that different than the Speed Racer cartoon?
Yes. Dick Dastardly and his dog Muttley race against these other racers, and like every week it's a different race, and they like all fuck with each other. And again, I'm doing nothing but to make my case that I'm not a grandpa. Because
how was the Civil War? Was that fun?
I'm gonna look up when Wacky Racers came out, because I'm sure it was the 50s or 60s.
My best chance to see it would have been on Boomerang, and I never saw it.
Oh, it was on Boomerang all the time.
Never seen it.
You tell me you don't know Muttley, Dick Dastardly, Penelope Pitstop, or Rock Slag?
I mean, not by their government name. Maybe if I saw a picture of them, but no, not ringing any bells.
Breaks my heart.
We do have one more drag race to get to, and it's our crew's tech whiz, Jesse, who, for some reason, bets his dad's car, who's incarcerated, and they built this car together. He bets this car against none other than Johnny Tran, who I just thought was a crotch rocket guy. Turns out he can actually get behind the wheel, too. The race doesn't end well for Jesse because he loses pretty easily. Realizing that he just gambled his incarcerated father's car, Jesse just flees the scene. Tran confronts Dom after the race, and he says that he got raided by the FBI at his house, and he thinks that there's a rat amongst this group, and he thinks that it's Dom. Dom really doesn't like being called a rat and beats the fucking brakes off of Tran. He is like so enraged and has to be restrained by multiple huge guys. Tran, for some reason, is pleased about this whole thing because he's smiling as Dom is pulled away. Not sure why that's the case. I've been through a couple scuffles in my life, and I've never been like thrilled about getting my ass beat. So,
Well, as somebody who's got their ass beat to the Macarena song, um, you got to take your wins where you can get them. And I think he honestly viewed this as, all right, I'm gonna have this big race later with Dom. More than likely, I'm assuming, like you said, it never really shows us what Race Wars is. But I'm assuming they have a race later, and now Ricky Tran thinks that he's gotten Dom's head. I think that has more to do with it than he just took a couple punches.
later that evening, Brian is looking for Mia and sees that her and Dom are getting into an argument. He confronts Mia about this whole thing, asks where Dom is heading, and then reveals to Mia that he's a cop. Mia's super upset and tries to walk away, but does eventually help Brian because Brian says that if she doesn't help him, something bad will happen to Dom. They're in the car now. They're trying to catch up to Dom. Brian asks for a cell phone trace on Dom's phone. And as all this is happening, Dom and his crew pull up to the Honda Civics as they prep for this big heist. They manage to get a trace on Dom's phone, and Brian is in hot pursuit. They're like 40 miles behind, which doesn't seem accurate. I digress. Doesn't seem accurate because between the argument between Mia and Dom, and I'm assuming Brian and Mia jumping into the car had to be like 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
So unless Dom and his crew are going 200 miles an hour, I just don't see how he was 40 miles behind.
They
But
hadn't used the
again,
NOS in these cars, so
it's just constant NOS all the way down the freeway. We're at the heist now. It's going down. They managed to break one of the truck driver's windows, but just as Vince is attempting to scale his way on this cable to the truck's cab, the driver is not having any of it, pulls out a shotgun and starts shooting, leaving Vince in no man's land. The crew try everything they can to get Vince out of this predicament that he's in, but his arm is now wrapped in this cable, and it's doing some pretty wicked fucking damage to his arm. The driver shoots one of Dom's tires out, so he's out of commission. Letty tries to take Dom's place since he's out of commission, but the truck driver is a little too smart to that, bumps Letty, and just fucking sends her to the side of the road, just a huge tumbling mess of a wreck. Letty's pretty banged up. She's ultimately fine, but is pretty banged up. Brian finally catches up, though, so he must have been going like 400 miles an hour
pounding
to
that
catch
NOS.
up all of this. Yep, just riding the NOS all the way down. And thank God, just in time, the truck driver shoots Dom's hood, causing his engine to fail. Again, leaving everybody out of the way, and Vince is all alone. Brian catches up to the truck and very heroically saves Vince from certain doom. Vince has lost a lot of blood, though, is the important thing to note here. And because his arm has been mangled, he's lost so much blood, Vince doesn't really have a shot of living unless they get an ambulance here. Brian tries to tell Dom that, and Dom doesn't seem to care. Dom strikes me as one of those guys that's like, no EMTs, no ambulances, no nothing. We're not going to do this. We'll figure it out on our own. Brian, not the same kind of cat. He hops on the phone again. This is Officer Brian O'Connor, badge number whatever. I need a medevac out here, blah, blah, blah. Revealing to Dom that he is a cop. And again, pissed. Vince does get medevaced out of there. Good for him. But Mia, Dom, and the rest of the crew leave Brian behind. Brian pulls back up to Dom's house, and he's loading up the Charger with a shotgun. He's trying to save Jesse because he knows that Tran is going to do something bad to him. Mid-argument, though, Jesse pulls up, and he starts apologizing to Dom. He's like, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I'm just so scared, blah, blah, blah. In the distance, you can hear some of the crotch rockets approaching, and two of Tran's crew guns Jesse down. R.I.P. Jesse. Gone too soon. Brian chases after them, and Dom is right behind him in the Charger. After a lengthy chase, Brian nearly gets got by one of the crotch rocketeurs, but Dom shows up and bumps him off the road. Brian gets into a shootout with the other one and seemingly kills him. Doesn't have a pulse, tells some random passerbys to call 911. Dom leaves the scene now, and Brian chases after him. Brian catches up to him, and they decide to have just a quick little drag race in the middle of the high stakes, high speed, whatever. And they said they're going to race to the railroad crossing up ahead. It's exactly a quarter mile. Dom has raced this before in high school. Before they can get too excited, though, we hear a train approaching the crossway. So now it's really a race against the train. They both decide to floor it instead of playing this game of chicken, and they both just barely make it. The relief is short-lived, though, because Dom runs into the side of an 18-wheeler cab and completely wrecks the Charger, which hurt my heart. Again, I love this car so much. He's banged up pretty bad, and he hears the police sirens. So he's like kind of accepting his fate. This is inevitable. My luck's ran out, whatever. Brian offers him his car, as a getaway, and says that he owes Dom a 10-second car. Dom does make his getaway, and Brian walks off as the sirens get closer. The movie's now over, fade to black. In the post-credit scene, though, we see that Dom has made his escape to Baja, Mexico. And I don't know, like, the origins of the post-credit scenes. This has to be one of the first ones in, like, real big pop culture, because the first ones that I remember watching were in the Marvel movies, which is 7 years away from this point. Obviously, like, I'm sure there were other movies that did this prior, but this has to be one of the earliest examples of a post-credit scene that I can remember.
I mean, you're probably right. I know they usually, if there were post-credit scenes, I feel like before this, it was always just like bloopers, like when they're going through the cast again. That's mainly what I can remember as a post-credit scene.
So now we finally made it to the end. You have your first real experience of the greatest franchise to ever be filmed. What'd you think?
It was all right. Again, I fucking hate loud cars. I hate guys that are super into cars. Like, that's just not
my.
Well, I'm right here. That's just not my thing. It's never been my thing. It's never gonna be my thing. So I mean, aside from that, like, that's a huge hurdle that this movie was gonna have to jump to make me like it, and it was okay. I mean, I know that there are like 10. Is there 10 or 11? No, there's more than that. There's like 14, isn't there?
So there's 10 main series films plus the Hobbs and Shaw stuff. So I think in total there's like 13, with a 14th on the way with Fast 11 in 2027, I think. But 10 original franchise movies.
So I mean, I know there's obviously more to come, but yeah, I mean, I the characters were nice. I like that.
So I alluded to it at the beginning of this pod that this franchise has never jumped the shark, and that's obviously tongue-in-cheek if anyone's ever seen the movie. We start off this franchise stealing TVs and DVD players, and in Fast 10, they go to space. So we have definitely jumped the shark a couple times here, but as an original idea, an original concept, I think that this was a really great starting off point. Because as of right now, I watched the movie on Peacock. There is Too Fast, Too Furious and Tokyo Drift on there. I will be watching those this week just because I'm in the mood. Like, I feel like the Fast and Furious, the first one, was so good as a movie that it does make me laugh a little bit knowing where we get to at some point. Really not even that far away. I think at the end of Tokyo Drift, we stop being a racing car movie, and then we kind of like dip our toes into some stuff that we probably shouldn't be entering. But also, again, if they didn't jump the shark, we don't get this many movies, and all these actors don't get these paychecks, and we probably don't get to see The Rock in as good of a movie as the Fast movies were. Like, we probably just don't get a lot of things if they don't jump the shark a couple of times. So despite what I said earlier, this franchise definitely has jumped the shark. But this original jumping off point, I think, was really solid. Would you rewatch it? My answer is obviously duh. But would you rewatch it?
I mean, I would definitely. I feel like it's one of those movies you can just kind of throw on. I'm not opposed to watching it again. I don't know. Maybe if I had like a long weekend and I absolutely had nothing else to do, and it was either that or die, maybe I'd watch it again. But I don't know. Hopefully that doesn't present itself to me soon.
Well, that kind of comment doesn't lead me to believe that you have one of these, but what was your favorite movie? Or what was your favorite moment, rather, of this film?
Honestly, that Ja Rule scene when he yells no, or after Dom after they have that little wreck and Dom hits the tractor trailer and he's like, didn't expect it to go that way. And it's like, no fucking shit, you didn't expect it to go that way. But I love that like throwaway line. Like he's just like this super macho badass guy. And then he just is like, yeah, I fucked up. Like I like that. I thought it made him more likable.
My favorite scenes were obviously all the racing scenes we talked about. My love of this franchise and how I love the culture, and Midnight Club 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. I loved everything about it, really. And even though, again, we've talked about how this series jumps the shark a lot, they've always maintained very good action scenes with the racing. So I will always love those. I'm sure you have a lot now based on everything that we've said so far, but what was your least favorite part of this movie?
My least favorite part were the racing scenes. Like, I get...
And that's all the time that we have for today on the Sad Boys.
And we're never recording another one. So it's... Honestly, for me, it is the racing scenes. I just hate the camera work of it. Like, I understand how they have to shoot it, and I get that they were cool shots. But for me, and I know that's what these movies are about, at least in the beginning, is about car racing and fast cars and stuff like that. But, like, that's one thing I disliked.
I can't help but love these scenes. You can ask my partner. She calls me a grandpa driver. I come to a complete stop at every red light and every stop sign. I obey traffic laws. I go under the speed limit. I'm just a cruiser. When I walk out of one of those movies, though, especially in the theater, God, it's so bad if I'm in the theater, I will speed like shit. I remember watching, it may have actually been Fast 10. It was either Fast 9 or Fast 10. I remember coming from the Marquee back home, which is like a 25-minute drive for me, speeding the whole way through. My lead foot. I just loved it. I just love the feeling of that. Any other time in the year, though, when it's not happening that way, I'm just a cruiser. I'm just a Sunday drive kind of guy. But watching those movies, I need to get in there. I need to feel it.
After being stuck behind you a few times driving into work, I wish you had watched Fast and Furious before then. Because I was like, come on, brother, we got to get to work.
Did we have to get to work?
I mean,
was it so important that we jobs.
Got... So no, I guess not.
My least favorite part of this is some of the dialogue. And unfortunately, most of it comes from Brian. There's a clip. I forget if it's in Too Fast, Too Furious or some other movie, but he's talking to somebody else and he says the phrase, "Don't worry about it, cuh," just like that. And it's not a great line delivery. I don't know how early Paul Walker was into his acting career when these movies came out. A lot of his dialogue seemed pretty flat. I would have just put Paul Walker in a dialect lesson a little before, maybe just give him some confidence as to actually just saying the lines. But the dialogue is something I was definitely my least favorite thing, and I would have sharpened up a little bit. So this is more of a question for you, because my answer is I would change literally nothing. Again, I think this is a perfect starting off point to a franchise, even though things get a little murky very soon here in the next couple of years for this franchise. But what would you change about the movie?
So as much as I hate this movie, it is very solid. Like,
whoa, time out. Hate this movie. I saw your Letterboxd rating already. You didn't hate the movie.
Well, we'll talk about my Letterboxd score rating. I told you it's not on a real scale. But these movies were never going to be my thing, and that's cool. I completely understand that. But for me, like, I think they did a phenomenal job of, if I could get into watching these, this was a great movie to start that, because I mean, obviously it's the first one, so kudos for that. But also, like, it piqued my interest. The world building was definitely there. And this is more so, I don't know what they were doing with Michelle Rodriguez, but like that poster, like the poster of her for the movie, like she definitely gives off, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
She gives off the doctor, like, that has Sally as his plaything. The fish lips looking guy.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I got you.
Look at the poster, and then look at a picture of that beside it. Like, that's just, I just couldn't unsee that. That's like, and I think Michelle Rodriguez, she's a very, attractive woman. My wife, that's her hall pass. One of many women hall passes for her. But They did not do her any justice in this movie, and I think that's the thing I hated the most.
It does get better. She has a fully fleshed out character arc, but we got to stick with it. This is the beginning of our process where we watch the other 9 movies, and you get to see this full fleshed out process. So you just stick with me, kid. I'll take you places. Now we're here, the creme de la creme. I know the answer. Tell the audience what you gave it out of Letterboxd out of 5.
I gave it a 3.
See, 3's a pretty good score to me, so you're gonna have to explain yourself here.
So I gave it a 3 because for the reasons I said it just a few minutes ago. Does a great job of world building. They're interesting, likable characters. Even though I'm not a race guy, I still, this movie was fine. It wasn't torturous for me to watch. Would it make me, put on my racing jacket and go out and, hop in my Nissan Altima and rev the engine and all that? No, it won't. But it wasn't bad. I will give it that. I didn't find myself looking at the clock and being like, "Oh my God, when will this movie end?" Like it was fine. It was an okay movie, middle of the road. Wasn't great, wasn't terrible. Fine.
So, of course, inevitably, I was going to give this a higher score than you did. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Again, I think it's a perfect jumping off point for a franchise. If we get to the other movies, we'll talk about those and how the score will fluctuate. I think 4 is a really solid start for this movie. I was interested, though, because I looked up. It's one of the first movies that we've done so far that I actually cared about what the ratings were on, IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. It's the first one that I looked up. 55% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 74% audience score, which I both feel are low, especially for that time period. In 2001, you have Vin Diesel, you have Michelle Rodriguez and Jordana Brewster and Paul Walker, like these attractive people doing action-y shit. I feel like that should have been just a recipe for a better movie or a better score, at least. I feel like these scores are reflective of the time that has passed and the fact that people don't like that this series has jumped the shark so many times. I feel like these ratings are review bombed because those can't have been the ratings for 2001. Absolutely not.
I mean, there's got to be a way you can look up the historical, the metrics of the rise and the fall of these scores.
If you can, I'm not smart enough to figure that out. So now that we've reviewed arguably one of the greatest movies of all time, we now have to know what's on the docket for next week. Tell us the movie that you picked and where we can watch it as an audience.
Next week, we're watching my favorite basketball player in a movie. That's right, folks. Double Team. 1991. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Dennis Rodman. I see you rolling your eyes, but this is a great film that I'm excited to watch.
I watched Bloodsport. I've watched Bloodsport. Why would you make me watch another Jean-Claude Van Damme movie?
I can go back to the Tubi well. I can go back there, and you can find Double Team. If you want to pay for it, you can rent it on Amazon, or you can watch it for free on YouTube, and that's where I'll be watching.
Yeah, I will also be joining you there on YouTube. Join us next week as we review Double Team featuring The Worm, Dennis Rodman, and fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme, I guess. If you want to save me from this hellscape of this type of weird torture that AJ's putting me through, suggest a movie in the comments. While you're down there, check our description and follow us on all socials at Sad Boy Cinema on TikTok and Twitter and here on YouTube, obviously. Also, follow our individual Letterboxd accounts. I'm going to put our handles above our head here. And if that's going to do it for you, I'll send us out of here.
Before we go, I want you to always remember, life boils down to one thing. Everything's a 50-50 shot. It either is or it isn't. It either will happen or it won't happen. And if you live your life like that, it's only going to be good.
That's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for AJ. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. See you in the next one.
Might be time to look into a new plan.